A London Museum Guide. Chapter 1. Lists of museums in London. The most popular London museums according to the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sport, DCMS. Museum Mile, London. The Sherlock Holmes Museum. British Museum. Churchill Museum and Cabinet War Rooms. Geffrye Museum. HMS Belfast. Horniman Museum. Imperial War Museum. Museum of London Docklands. Museum of London. National Gallery. National Portrait Gallery. National Maritime Museum. Natural History Museum. Science Museum. Sir John Soanes Museum. Tate Modern and Tate Britain. V&A Museum of Childhood. Victoria and Albert Museum. Wallace Collection. A list of museums in London at en.wikipedia.org/wiki/list_of_museums_in_London. 2. Willow Road, Hampstead, Camden, North, Historic House, operated by the National Trust, modernist terrace house designed by Ern Goldfinger. 7. Hammersmith Terrace, Hammersmith and Fulham, West, Historic House, former home of Emery Walker, friend and mentor to William Morris. House features arts and crafts style interior. 18. Stafford Terrace, Holland Park, Kensington and Chelsea, West, Historic House, also known as Linley Sambourne House, home of the Victorian Punch cartoonist Edward Linley Sambourne, features much of his work. 575 Wandsworth Road, Clapham, Lambeth, South, Historic House, operated by the National Trust, 18th century terrace house with interiors designed by Kenyan poet and civil servant Kadambi Asal Ake. All Hallows by the Tower Crypt Museum, Tower, City of London, North East, Religious, Saxon period Anglican Church, Museum of Churches history including Roman and Saxon artifacts, historic religious artifacts. Anesthesia Heritage Centre, Fitzrovia, Westminster, North, Medical, History of Anesthesia and the Association of Anaesthetists of Great Britain and Ireland. Apsley House, Hyde Park Corner, Westminster, North, Historic House, operated by English Heritage, also known as Wellington Museum, home of the Duke of Wellington, significant collections of paintings, porcelain, sculpture and furniture. Arsenal Football Club Museum, Holloway, Islington, North, Sport, History and Memorabilia of the Arsenal FC. Art in Perpetuity Trust, Deptford, Lewisham, South East, Art, Contemporary Visual Art. Arts Depot, Finchley, Barnet, North, Art, Arts Centre with Exhibit Gallery. Baden-Powell House Exhibition, South Kensington, Kensington and Chelsea, West, biographical, history of Lord Baden-Powell, the founder of Scouting. Bank of England Museum, City of London, North East, numismatic, history of the bank and its activities, banknotes and coins, books and documents, pictures, furniture, statues, silver. Bankside Gallery, Bankside, Southwark, South East, art, educational charity, home to the Royal Watercolour Society and the Royal Society of Painter Printmakers. Banqueting House, Whitehall, Westminster, North, Historic House, ornate 17th century building used for entertaining, designed by Inigo Jones, only remaining component of the Palace of Whitehall. Barbican Centre, Barbican Estate, City of London, North East, Art, Arts Centre and Gallery. Barnet Museum, Barnet, North, local history, costumes, domestic items, lace. Battle of Britain Bunker, Uxbridge, Hillingdon, West, history, museum and restored underground operations room at formerly used by No. 11 Group Fighter Command during World War II. Ben Uri Gallery, the London Jewish Museum of Art, St John's Wood, Westminster, North, Art, Jewish Art. Benjamin Franklin House, Westminster, North, Historic House, 18th century house where Benjamin Franklin lived for 16 years, exhibits on his life, science activities. Bentley Priory Museum, Stanmore, Harrow, West. History, museum in former officers' mess at former RAF base at Bentley Priory, used by the RAF Fighter Command and Royal Observer Corps during World War II, focuses on its role as Headquarters Fighter Command during the Battle of Britain. Black Cultural Archives, Brixton, Lambeth, South, Black History Museum and Cultural Space. Bethlehem Museum of the Mind, Beckenham, Bromley, South East, Medical, Art by Patients and Historic Artifacts of Bethlehem Royal Hospital. Borough Road Gallery, Southwark, South East, Art, part of London South Bank University, celebrates the artist David Bomberg and includes the Sarah Rose collection of his pictures and those of other artists in the Borough Group. Boston Manor House, Boston Manor, Hounslow, West. Historic House, 17th century Jacobean Manor House. Bow Street Police Museum, Covent Garden, Westminster, North. Law enforcement, based in the former Bow Street Police Station, it presents the story of policing in the area from the 18th century until 1992, when the police station closed. Brent Museum, Willesden, Brent, West. Located in the Willesden Green Library Centre, Local History and Culture, formerly the Grange Museum of Community History 1. British Airways Heritage Centre, Hatton, Hounslow, West. Aviation, History and Memorabilia of British Airways, including uniforms, aircraft models and pictures, posters and photographs too. British Dental Association Museum, Westminster, North. Medical, History of Dental Care in the United Kingdom. British Library, St Pancras, Camden, North. Library, changing exhibits of art, history and culture from its collections. British Museum, Bloomsbury, Camden, North. Multiple, art, decorative arts, archaeology, antiquities from ancient Egypt, Rome, Greece and the Middle East, coins, galleries on Africa, North America, Mexico, Asia. British Optical Association Museum, Charing Cross, Westminster, North. Medical, History of Eye Care, by appointment only. British Red Cross Museum and Archives, Moorgate, City of London, North East. Medical, History and Memorabilia of the British Red Cross, open by appointment only. Brixton Windmill, Brixton, Lambeth, South. Local, early 19th century windmill, interior open selected days only. Bromley Museum, Orpington, Bromley, South East. Local History and Culture 3. Bruce Castle Museum, Tottenham, Haringey, North. Local History, Culture. Brunei Gallery, Bloomsbury, Camden, North. Art, part of the School of Oriental and African Studies of the University of London, historic and contemporary works from and about Africa and Asia, including photography and culture. Brunel Museum, Rotherhithe, Southwark, South East. Technology, history of the construction of the Thames Tunnel and its designers, Sir Mark Isambard Brunel. Buckingham Palace, Westminster, North. Historic House, official London residence of the British monarch. Public tours of the staterooms, includes Queen's Gallery and Royal Mews during summer only. The Building Centre, Bloomsbury, Camden, North. Design, exhibits on architecture and design for. Berghouse and Hampstead Museum, Hampstead, Camden, North. Local history, culture, art exhibits. Camden Arts Centre, Hampstead, Camden, North. Art, changing exhibits of contemporary art. Campbell Works, Stoke Newington, Hackney, East. Art, runs a program of contemporary art exhibitions, public engagement projects, publications and education schemes. Canada House Gallery, Trafalgar Square, Westminster, North. Art, Canadian historical and contemporary art and artifacts. Carlyle's House, Chelsea, Kensington and Chelsea, West. Historic house, operated by the National Trust, Queen Anne early 18th century townhouse, home of Victorian historian and philosopher Thomas Carlyle. Cartoon Museum, Fitzrovia, Camden, North, Art, political cartoons, comic strips, and comic books. Centre for Recent Drawing, Islington, North, Art, contemporary drawings. Charles Dickens Museum, Holborn, Camden, North, historic house, mid-19th century period house with original papers, furniture, and items relating to author Charles Dickens. Chelsea Physic Garden, Chelsea, Kensington, and Chelsea, West, medical, botanical garden with displays on medicinal uses of plants. Chisenhall Gallery, Tower Hamlets, Northeast, Art, non-profit contemporary art gallery. Chiswick House, Chiswick, Hounslow, West, historic house, 18th century Neo-Palladian villa with large collection of art and furniture, gardens. Churchill War Rooms, Whitehall, Westminster, North, multiple, includes the World War II era underground cabinet war rooms and the Churchill Museum with exhibits about the life of British statesman Winston Churchill. City of London Police Museum, City of London, North East, law enforcement, uniforms, Victorian-era police equipment, communications devices, famous murders, World War II display. Cinema Museum, Lambeth, Southwest, media, history, and artifacts of film making. Clarence House, Pall Mall, Westminster, North, historic house, official residence of the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall, normally open only during August. Clink Prison Museum, Southwark, South East, prison, site, and history of the notorious prison in use from the 12th century to 1780. Courtauld Gallery, Strand, Westminster, North, Art, part of the University of London, located in Somerset House, features old masters and impressionist paintings. Crime Museum, Westminster, North, law enforcement, history, artifacts, and crime memorabilia of Scotland Yard, not open to the public. Crofton Roman Villa, Orpington, Bromley, South East, archaeology, remains of a Roman villa. Crossness Pumping Station, Crossness, Bexley, South East, technology, Victorian sewage pumping station with preserved steam engines. Crystal Palace Museum, Crystal Palace, Bromley, South East, history, and memorabilia of the Crystal Palace 5. Cubitt Gallery, Finsbury, Islington, North, Art. Cumming Museum, Walworth, Southwark, South East, local history, culture, small collection of ancient Egyptian objects. Closed since March 2013 due to fire damage. Cutty Sark Museum, Greenwich, South East, maritime, mid-19th century clipper, museum ship. Danson House, Danson Park, Bexley, South East, historic house, 18th century Georgian house. Dennis Severs House, Spitalfields, Tower Hamlets, North East, history, enactments of life in the 18th and 19th centuries. Design Museum, Kensington, and Chelsea, West, design, product, industrial, graphic, fashion and architectural design. Dr. Johnson's House, City of London, North East, historic house, 18th century townhouse home of 18th century English writer Samuel Johnson. Dorridge House, Kingston Vale, Kingston upon Thames, South West, Art, former studio of the Estonian sculptor Dora Gordon, with a collection of her works and of Russian imperial art. Part of Kingston University. 6. Down House, Down, Bromley, South East, historic house, operated by English Heritage, home of naturalist Charles Darwin where he wrote on the origin of species. Dulwich Picture Gallery, Dulwich, Southwark, South East, Art, collection of European Old Masters, mostly of the 17th and 18th centuries. Eastbury Manor House, Barking and Dagenham, North East, historic house, owned by the National Trust, 16th century Tudor gentry house, local history displays. Eltham Palace, Eltham, Greenwich, South East, historic house, operated by English Heritage, 1930s Art Deco house with medieval Great Hall. Enfield Museum, Enfield, North, local history. Historic collection of modern Italian art, Canonbury, Islington, North, art, modern Italian art. Fan Museum, Greenwich, Southeast, fashion, art and craft of the fan. Faraday Museum, Mayfair, Westminster, North, science, located at the Royal Institution, scientist Michael Faraday's 19th century laboratory, activities and people associated with the institution. Fashion and Textile Museum, Bermondsey, Southwark, Southeast, fashion, fashions, textiles and jewellery, both historic and contemporary. Fenton House, Hampstead, Camden, North, historic house, operated by the National Trust, 17th century merchant's house, features collections of early keyboard instruments, paintings, porcelain, needlework pictures and Georgian furniture. Fleming Museum, Paddington, Westminster, North, medical, located at St Mary's Hospital, London, site and history of Alexander Fleming's discovery of penicillin, 1928 period laboratory. Florence Nightingale Museum, Lambeth, Southwest, medical, life and nursing work of Florence Nightingale. Forty Hall Museum, Forty Hill, Enfield, North, multiple, local history, 17th and 18th century ceramics and pottery, 19th and 20th century china, glassware. Foundling Museum, Bloomsbury, Camden, North, multiple, history of the Foundling Hospital, Britain's first home for abandoned children, art by many of Britain's most prominent 18th century artists, 18th century period rooms, room on composer George Frideric Handel and his connection to the hospital. Francis Scarina Belarusian Library and Museum, North Finchley, Barnet, North, history, collection of material relating to the history of Belarus. Freud Museum, Hampstead, Camden, North, historic house, home of Sigmund Freud, features his study, exhibits on his life and works, collection of ancient Egyptian artifacts, contemporary art and Freud-themed exhibitions. Fulham Palace, Fulham, Hammersmith and Fulham, West, historic house, medieval former residence of the Bishop of London, also art gallery. Fusiliers Museum, Tower Hill, Tower Hamlets, Northeast, military, history of the Royal Fusiliers, uniforms, regalia, medals, weapons and memorabilia, located at the Tower of London. Galton Collection, Bloomsbury, Camden, North, medical, part of the University College London, open by appointment only, scientific instruments, papers, and personal memorabilia of Sir Francis Galton. Garden Museum, Lambeth, Southwest, gardening, tools and artifacts related to ornamental gardening. Garrick's Temple to Shakespeare, Hampton, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, biographical, 18th century folly built by actor David Garrick to celebrate the genius of William Shakespeare, includes display on Garrick's life and acting career. Gasworks Gallery, Kennington, Lambeth, Southwest, art, contemporary art organization with exhibition space and studios. Goldsmiths Centre, Clerkenwell, Islington, North, art, changing exhibits of contemporary jewellery and silversmithing, operated by the Worshipful Company of Goldsmiths. Golden Hind, Bankside, Southwark, Southeast, Maritime, replica museum ship of the Golden Hind, the 16th century galleon used by Sir Francis Drake. Gordon Museum of Pathology, Southwark, Southeast, medical, the largest medical museum in the United Kingdom, 7 part of King's College London. Grant Museum of Zoology and Comparative Anatomy, Bloomsbury, Camden, North, natural history, part of the University College London, skeletons, taxidermy, entomology and specimens preserved in fluid. Greenwich Visitors Centre, Greenwich, Southeast, history, also known as Discover Greenwich Visitor Centre, history of the World Heritage Site, its builders and buildings, maritime heritage, local history. Guards Museum, Westminster, North, military, history, artifacts and memorabilia of the 5 regiments of Foot Guards, the Grenadier Guards, Coldstream Guards, Scots Guards, Irish Guards, and Welsh Guards. Guildhall Art Gallery, Battersea Shaw, City of London, North East, Art, located in the Guildhall. Collection includes art and cultural artifacts about London, Victorian-era works, remains of a Roman amphitheatre in the basement. Gunnersbury Park Museum, Acton, Hounslow, West, local history of Hounslow and Ealing boroughs, archaeology, costume, fine art, ceramics, also Edwardian-era kitchen rooms. Hackney Museum, Hackney, North, local history and culture 8. Hall Place, Crayford, Bexley, South East, historic house, 16th and 17th century former country house, exhibits from the Bexley Museum's collections including art, social history, natural history, geology, archaeology, ancient Egypt, costumes, furniture. Ham House, Ham, Richmond upon Thames, South West, historic house, operated by the National Trust, 17th century grand house, fine interiors and historic gardens, collections of textiles and furniture. Hampton Court Palace, Hampton, Richmond upon Thames, South West, historic house, former royal palace, King Henry VIII exhibition, Tudor kitchen, Tudor period living history programs, gardens, maze. Handel and Hendricks in London, Mayfair, Westminster, North, historic house. Museum dedicated to the lives and works of the Baroque composer George Frideric Handel and the rock guitarist Jimi Hendrix, who lived in adjoining houses 2 centuries apart. Harrow Museum, Headstone, Harrow, West, local history, industry, archaeology, also known as Headstone Manor Museum. Havering Museum, Romford, Havering, North East, local. Hayward Gallery, South Bank, Lambeth, South West, art, part of the South Bank Centre, contemporary art. Heath Robinson Museum, Pinner, Harrow, North West, biographical, life and work of cartoonist Heath Robinson. HMS Belfast, Southwark, South East, maritime, operated by the Imperial War Museum, originally a Royal Navy light cruiser and served during the Second World War and Korean War. Hogarth's House, Chiswick, Hounslow, West, historic house, home of the 18th century English artist William Hogarth. Honeywood Museum, Carshalton, Sutton, South West, local, 17th century house with details from different eras of ownership, local history exhibits. Honourable Artillery Company Museum, Finsbury, Islington, North, military, regimental artifacts and memorabilia, by appointment only. Horniman Museum and Gardens, Forest Hill, Lewisham, South East, multiple, musical instruments, art, natural history, anthropology, African arts and culture, aquarium, gardens. House of Dreams Museum, East Dulwich, Southwark, South East, art, house turned into outsider art sculpture by former textile designer and art director Stephen Wright. House of Illustration, King's Cross, Camden, North, art, located at Granary Square, public gallery dedicated to illustration 9. Household Cavalry Museum, Horse Guards Parade, Westminster, North, military, regimental artifacts and memorabilia of the Household Cavalry. Hunterian Museum, Lincoln's Inn Fields, Westminster, North, medical, Hunterian collection of preserved anatomical specimens, history, artifacts and developments in surgery, part of the Royal College of Surgeons. Icondoe, Victoria, Westminster, North, Scouting, formerly the Girl Guide Heritage Centre, exhibits and activities about Girl Guides 10. Imperial War Museum London, Southwark, South East, military, warfare in the 20th and 21st centuries. Inns of Court and City Yeomanry Museum, Lincoln's Inn, Camden, North, military, regimental history and artifacts of the Inns of Court and City Yeomanry, by appointment only. Institute of Archaeology Collections, Bloomsbury, Camden, North, Archaeology, part of the University College London, open by appointment only, prehistoric ceramics and stone artifacts, classical Greek and Roman ceramics. Institute of Contemporary Arts, The Mall, Westminster, North, Art, Multidisciplinary Arts Centre with exhibit galleries. Islington Museum, Finsbury, Islington, North, Local History. Jack the Ripper Museum, Tower Hamlets, North East, History of the East London in the 1880s, providing a serious examination of the crimes of Jack the Ripper within the social context of the period. Jewel Tower, Westminster, North, History, operated by English Heritage, one of only two surviving sections of the medieval Royal Palace of Westminster, includes an exhibition on the history of Parliament and the building. Jewish Museum London, Camden Town, Camden, North, Ethnic, Jewish Culture, Heritage and Traditions in Britain, Ceremonial Art Collection. Keats House, Hampstead, Camden, North, Historic House, early 19th century home of Romantic poet John Keats. Kelmscott House Museum, Hammersmith and Fulham, West, Art, London home of William Morris, exhibits of his designs. Kennel Club Dog Art Gallery, Westminster, North, Art, exhibits and collection of dog paintings, open by appointment. Kensington Palace, Kensington Gardens, Kensington and Chelsea, West, Historic House, Royal Residence. Kenwood House, Hampstead, Camden, North, Historic House, operated by English Heritage, 17th century former country house, interiors by Robert Adam, features collection of old master paintings. Kew Gardens, Kew, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, multiple, includes Shirley Sherwood Gallery of Botanical Art, Marianne North Gallery, exhibits on plants and conservation, Kew Palace. Kew Palace, Kew, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, Historic House, former Royal Palace located within the Kew Gardens. Kingston Museum, Kingston upon Thames, Southwest, Local History, Edward Muybridge Gallery of Photographs, exhibits of art, photography, culture. Kirkcaldy Testing Museum, Southwark, Southeast, Technology, materials testing machines used by engineer David Kirkcaldy. L13 Light Industrial Workshop, Clerkenwell, Islington, North, Art, Contemporary Art Space. Lambeth Palace, Lambeth, Southwest, Historic House, tours of the official London residence of the Archbishop of Canterbury on selected days only. Landmark Arts Centre, Teddington, Richmond upon Thames, West, Art, Arts Centre with Visual Art Gallery, located in the former St Albans Church 11. Langdon Down Museum of Learning Disability, Teddington, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, medical, operated by the Down Syndrome Association in the Langdon Down Centre, history of treating people with learning disabilities. Lethaby Gallery, King's Cross, Camden, North, Art, located at Granary Square, Art Gallery of Central St Martin's, features contemporary and historic works from its collections of art and design. Leighton House Museum, Holland Park, Kensington and Chelsea, West, Art, Victorian House of Painter Frederick, Lord Leighton, features paintings, sculpture, Middle Eastern tiles. Library and Museum of Freemasonry, Holborn, Camden, North, Masonic, Library, artifacts and regalia of Freemasonry. Little Holland House, Carshalton, Sutton, Southwest, Historic House, Arts and Crafts home of the artist Frank Dickinson, 1874–1961, with interior influenced by John Ruskin and William Morris. London Canal Museum, King's Cross, Islington, North, Transport, history of London's canals. London Film Museum, Covent Garden, Westminster, North, media, props, costumes, sets, and artifacts from British films, history of movie making. London Fire Brigade Museum, Southwark, South East, firefighting, open by appointment only, history of the London Fire Brigade, equipment, apparatus. London Mithraeum, City of London, Central, archaeology, remains of a Roman temple to Mithras. London Motorcycle Museum, Greenford, Ealing, West, transport, over 150 classic and British motorcycles. London Museum of Water and Steam, Brentford, Hounslow, West, technology, water supply technology and a collection of water pumping steam engines, also operating narrow gauge railway, formerly the Kew Bridge Steam Museum. London Sewing Machine Museum, Wimbledon, Merton, Southwest, technology, collection of sewing machines 12. London Transport Museum, Covent Garden, Westminster, North, transport, public transport including the railway, underground, buses, memorabilia. London Transport Museum Depot, Acton, Ealing, West, transport, houses the majority of the museum's collection, open day visits and tours. Madame Tussauds London, Westminster, North, wax figures of celebrities in acting, music, politics, sport, history, royalty, and fiction. Mall Galleries, Trafalgar Square, Westminster, North, art, gallery exhibits of the Federation of British Artists. Magic Circle Museum, Camden, North, magic tricks, props, posters, artifacts, open by appointment. Mansion House, City of London, North East, historic house, guided tours of the public rooms of the official residence of the Lord Mayor of the City of London, includes city regalia, 17th century Dutch and Flemish paintings, gold and silver plate collections, open on selected days only. Marble Hill House, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, historic house, operated by English Heritage, 18th century Palladian villa with Georgian interior. Markfield Beam Engine and Museum, Tottenham, Haringey, North, technology, Victorian 100 horsepower beam pumping engine. MCC Museum, St John's Wood, Westminster, North, sport, history and memorabilia of cricketing, located at Lord's Cricket Ground. Media Space, South Kensington, and Chelsea, West, art, located on the second floor of the Science Museum, showcases the collection of the National Media Museum, explores relationships between, and lesser-known histories of, photography, science, art and technology. Merton Heritage Centre, Merton, Southwest, local history 13. Mocha, London, Peckham Rye, Southwark, Southeast, art, museum dedicated to contemporary art of varied media. Curate by Michael Petrie. Morley Gallery, South Bank, Lambeth, Southwest, art, part of Morley College. Exhibitions include painting, printmaking, sculpture, photography, ceramics, textiles, installations, digital and sound art. Museum of Army Music, Twickenham, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, music, open Wednesday afternoons and by appointment. History of British military bands and music, includes musical instruments, banners, uniforms, paintings, model bands. Now closed and the site is a school. Museum of Asian Music, Acton, Ealing, West, music, musical instruments, music extracts, and video clips of music from across Asia. Museum of Brands, Notting Hill, Kensington, and Chelsea, West, media, advertising, packaging and brand memorabilia and artifacts, including domestic products, packaging, posters, toys and games. Museum of Comedy, Bloomsbury, Camden, North, media, located in the Undercroft of St. George's, Bloomsbury, photos, posters, memorabilia, scripts, video and film about the history of British comedy. Museum of Croydon, 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 Southwest, local history, culture, social history, Riesco Gallery with collections of Chinese pottery and ceramics, and Roman and Anglo-Saxon collections. Museum of Domestic Design and Architecture, Colindale, Barnet, North, Art, open by appointment only, Research Museum of Middlesex University, 19th and 20th century decorative arts for the home including textiles and wallpaper. Museum of Immigration and Diversity, Spitalfields, Tower Hamlets, Northeast, History, open selected days only. Museum of Life Sciences, Southwark, Southeast, Natural History, Historic Biological and Pharmaceutical Collections including skeletons, fluid-preserved material, taxidermy, and fossils, part of King's College London. Museum of London, Barbican Estate, City of London, Northeast, History, Cities History, Culture, Archaeology. Museum of London Docklands, Isle of Dogs, Tower Hamlets, Northeast, Maritime, River and Local History. Museum of Richmond, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, local history, culture. Museum of the Home, Shoreditch, Hackney, North, art and historic house, changing style of the English domestic interior in a series of period rooms from 1600 to the present day. Also historic almshouse. Formerly the Geffrye Museum. Museum of the Order of St. John, Clerkenwell, Islington, North, medical, history of the Order of St. John and its medical care in the community. Museum of Wimbledon, Merton, Southwest, local history, culture 14. Musical Museum, Brentford, Hounslow, West, music, collection of music boxes and automatic instruments. National Army Museum, Chelsea, Kensington and Chelsea, West, military, history and artifacts of the British Army. National Gallery, Trafalgar Square, Westminster, North, art, National Collection of Western European painting from the 13th century to 1900. National Maritime Museum, Greenwich, Southeast, maritime, history of Britain at sea, includes maritime art, ship models and plans, scientific and navigational instruments, instruments for timekeeping and astronomy. Incorporates Greenwich Observatory and the Queen's House. National Portrait Gallery, Soho, Westminster, North, art, portraits of historically important and famous British people. Natural History Museum, South Kensington, and Chelsea, West, natural history, also includes the Geological Museum. Collections focus is botany, entomology, mineralogy, paleontology, and zoology. Old Operating Theatre Museum and Herb Garrett, Southwark, Southeast, medical, 19th century operating theatre, Herb Garrett, and Museum of Surgery. Old Royal Naval College, Greenwich, Southeast, history. Old Speech Room Gallery and Museum, Harrow School, Harrow, West, art, Egyptian and Greek antiquities, English watercolors, modern British paintings, sculpture, printed books, and natural history. Orleans House Gallery, Twickenham, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, art, Municipal Art Gallery, also the Stables Gallery. Osterley Park and House, Isleworth, Hounslow, West, historic house, operated by the National Trust, late 18th century palace designed by Robert Adam, ornate interiors, gardens. Parasol Unit Foundation for Contemporary Art, Hackney, North, art, exhibitions of works by international contemporary artists working in various media. Peckham Platform, Southwark, Southeast, art, contemporary art. Petrie Museum of Egyptian Archaeology, Bloomsbury, Camden, North, archaeology, artifacts from ancient Egypt, part of the University College London. The Photographers Gallery, Soho, Westminster, North, art, photography. Pittshanger Manor, Ealing, West, historic house, designed by the architect John Sohn, has exhibitions of contemporary art. Polish Institute and Sikorsky Museum, South Kensington, Westminster, West, military, contributions of the Polish Armed Forces in the West in World War II. Pollock's Toy Museum, Fitzrovia, Camden, North, toys, games, dolls, puppets, folk toys. Postal Museum, Clerkenwell, Islington, North, philatelic, postal communications history, stamps, letters, artifacts. Pushkin House, Bloomsbury, Camden, North, art, Russian art and culture. Queen Charlotte's Cottage, Kew, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, historic house, located within the Kew Gardens, 18th century rustic retreat built for Queen Charlotte, open seasonally. Queen Elizabeth's Hunting Lodge, Chingford, Waltham Forest, Northeast, historic house, Tudor Hunting Lodge. Queen's Gallery, Westminster, North, art, exhibitions of items from the Royal Collection, located at Buckingham Palace. Queen's House, Greenwich, Southeast, art, Marine Art Gallery of the National Maritime Museum. Queer Britain, King's Cross, London, Camden, North, art and history, Britain's first dedicated LGBTQ museum. Ragged School Museum, Tower Hamlets, Northeast, education, history of the Victorian-era charity schools. Rainham Hall, Rainham, Havering, Northeast, historic house, operated by the National Trust, 18th century Queen Anne House. Rangers House, Wernher Collection, Greenwich, Southeast, art, operated by English Heritage, Georgian Villa with fine and decorative art collection including silver and jewels, paintings and porcelain. Red House, Bexley Heath, Bexley, Southeast, historic house, operated by the National Trust, 19th century house commissioned, created and lived in by William Morris, founder of the arts and crafts movement. Red Mansion Foundation, Portland Place, Westminster, North, art, gallery exhibits of contemporary Chinese art. Red Bridge Museum, Ilford, Red Bridge, Northeast, local history, culture, located on the second floor of Ilford Central Library 15. RCM Museum of Music, South Kensington, and Chelsea, West, music, musical instruments, art, documents and accessories, part of the Royal College of Music. Riverside Gallery, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, art, Municipal Art Gallery 16. Rivington Place, Shoreditch, Hackney, North, art, International Visual Arts Centre, home to NIVA and Autograph ABP. Rose Theatre Exhibition, Bankside, Southwark, Southeast, archaeology, excavations of an Elizabethan theatre. Royal Academy of Arts, Piccadilly, Westminster, North, art, located in Burlington House. Royal Academy of Music Museum, Regent's Park, Westminster, North, music, musical instruments and artifacts of the Royal Academy of Music. Royal Air Force Museum London, Colindale, Barnet, North, aviation, history of aviation and the British Royal Air Force. Royal Armouries, Tower of London, Tower Hill, Tower Hamlets, Northeast, military, arms and armour dating from the Middle Ages onwards. Royal College of Physicians Museum, Regent's Park, Camden, North, medical, portraits, silver, medical instruments and artifacts. Royal Hospital Chelsea Museum, Chelsea, Kensington and Chelsea, West, military, military artifacts and memorabilia, items related to the Duke of Wellington. Royal London Hospital Archives and Museum, Whitechapel, Tower Hamlets, North, medical, history of the hospital and medical care in the East End. Royal Mews, Westminster, North, transport, the King's Stables, features state vehicles including horse-drawn carriages and motor cars, and the Gold State Coach. Royal Observatory, Greenwich, Southeast, horology, part of the National Maritime Museum, features astronomical and navigational tools, a planetarium. Royal Pharmaceutical Society Museum, Lambeth, Lambeth, Southwest, Medical, British Pharmacy History, Medicines and Artifacts. Saatchi Gallery, Chelsea, Kensington and Chelsea, West, Art, Contemporary Art. St Bartholomew's Hospital Museum, Smithfield, City of London, North East, Medical, History of the hospital and its work, Historic surgical instruments, Sculpture, Medieval archives, works of art including paintings by William Hogarth. St Paul's Cathedral, Ludgate Hill, City of London, North East, Religious, Anglican Cathedral with religious art, sculpture, architecture, tombs, decorative arts. Salvation Army International Heritage Centre, Denmark Hill, Southwark, South, Religious, within William Booth College, Museum and Archive charting the history of the Christian Church and Charity, the Salvation Army 17. Science Gallery London, Southwark, Southwark, South East, Science and Art, exhibitions of art illuminating scientific topics. Science Museum, South Kensington, Kensington and Chelsea, West, Science, National Museum of Science and Technology, Transport, Medicine, Steam Engines. Serpentine Galleries, Kensington Gardens, Westminster, West, Art, Serpentine Gallery and Serpentine Sackler Gallery in Kensington Gardens, exhibitions of contemporary art, architecture and design. Sherlock Holmes Museum, Regent's Park, Westminster, North, biographical, dedicated to the fictional detective Sherlock Holmes. Shirley Windmill, Shirley, Croydon, Southwest, Mill, restored mid-19th century tower windmill. The Showroom, Westminster, North, Art, Contemporary Art Gallery. Sir John Soane's Museum, Holborn, Camden, North, Art, Fine Art, Architecture, Antiquities, Sculpture. Somerset House, Strand, Westminster, North, Art, Arts Centre with Gallery and Court Old Gallery. Saseki Museum in London, Clapham, Lambeth, Southwest, Historic House, London home of Japanese author Natsume Seki 18. South London Gallery, Camberwell, Southwark, Southeast, Art, Contemporary Art. Southside House, Wimbledon, Merton, Southwest, Historic House, 17th century period house. Spencer House, St James's, Westminster, North, Historic House, 18th century mansion with restored staterooms and garden. Stevens Collection, Finchley, Barnet, North, biographical, life of Dr. Henry Stevens, inventor of an indelible blue-black ink, and his son Henry Charles Stevens, their ink company and local history. Strawberry Hill, Twickenham, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, Historic House, Gothic villa home of Horace Walpole. Studio Voltaire, Clapham, Lambeth, South, Art, Contemporary Art 19. Sutton House, Hackney, Hackney, North, Historic House, operated by the National Trust, 16th century Tudor house. Sion House, Brentford, Hounslow, West, Historic House, family residence of the Duke of Northumberland, 18th century house with interior by Robert Adam, collections of paintings and furniture, gardens, park. Tate Britain, Millbank, Westminster, North, Art, National Collection of Historical and Contemporary British Art. Tate Modern, Bankside, Southwark, South East, Art, National Collection of Modern and Contemporary Art. Tower Bridge, Tower Hamlets, North East, Technology, Steam Engines, Workings of the Bridge. Tower of London, Tower Hill, Tower Hamlets, North East, Multiple, Historic Fortress, Prison and former royal residence, includes the Royal Armouries, Crown Jewels of the United Kingdom, Regimental Museum of the Royal Fusiliers. Twinings Museum, Strand, Westminster, North, Food, History of Twinings, Tea Caddies and Tea History. Twickenham Museum, Twickenham, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, Local, Local History. 2 Temple Place, Westminster, North, Art, Late Victorian Mansion, now an art gallery to showcase publicly owned art from UK regional collections, only open during exhibitions. UCL Geology Collections, Bloomsbury, Camden, North, Natural History, part of the University College London, Rocks, Minerals, Fossils on display in the Rock Room, limited opening hours 20. Upminster Tithe Barn Museum of Nostalgia, Upminster, Havering, North East, History, Artifacts of Rural Domestic and Agricultural Life. Upminster Windmill, Upminster, Havering, North East, Mill, 19th century windmill, exhibits on its history. Vagina Museum, Camden, Camden, North, Museum, aims to celebrate female reproductive anatomy and challenge myths and misconceptions. Valence House Museum, Dagenham, Barking and Dagenham, North East, Local, Local History, Archaeology, Maritime and Fishing Industry, Art. Valentine's Mansion, Ilford, Redbridge, North East, Historic House, Country House with recreated Victorian kitchen and Georgian rooms, contemporary art exhibits, 18th century gardens. Vestry House Museum, Walthamstow, Waltham Forest, North East, Local, Local History, Culture. Victoria and Albert Museum, South Kensington, Kensington and Chelsea, West, multiple. National Collection of Applied Arts includes ceramics, glass, textiles, costumes, silver, ironwork, jewelry, furniture, medieval objects, sculpture, prints and printmaking, drawings and photographs, theatre and performing arts, Asian art and decorative arts, architecture. The Victor Wind Museum of Curiosities, Fine Art and Natural History, Hackney, Hackney, North, multiple. Includes natural and scientific curiosities, art, pop culture objects. Wallace Collection, Marylebone, Westminster, North, Art, Old Masters and Decorative Arts. Walthamstow Pump House Museum, Walthamstow, Waltham Forest, North East, Transport. The museum is due to become the Lee Valley Experience, pioneering achievements in road, rail, air and sea transport in the River Lee Valley from the early 19th century. Wandle Industrial Museum, Mitcham, Merton, Southwest, Industry, industries along the River Wandle including flour and textile mills 21. Wandsworth Museum, Wandsworth, Wandsworth, Southwest, Local, Local History. Wellcome Collection, Camden, North, Medical artifacts and original artworks exploring ideas about the connections between medicine, life and art, exhibits from the collections of the Wellcome Library. Wellington Arch, Hyde Park Corner, Westminster, North, History, triumphal arch with exhibits about its history. Wesley's Chapel, Museum of Methodism and John Wesley's House, Islington, North, religious, history of Methodism from its founding by John Wesley to the present. Westminster Abbey Museum, Westminster, Westminster, North, religious, royal and other funeral effigies, religious artifacts. Westminster Dragoons Museum, Fulham, Hammersmith and Fulham, West, military, regimental artifacts, regalia and memorabilia, collection currently in storage 22. White Lodge Museum and Ballet Resource Centre, Richmond, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, Ballet, history of the Royal Ballet School, daily life of its students, history and development of classical ballet, history of White Lodge, visits by appointment. Whitechapel Gallery, Whitechapel, Tower Hamlets, North East, art, contemporary art. Whitehall, Cheam, Sutton, Southwest, historic house, Tudor house with elements from different eras. Whitewebb's Museum of Transport, Cruise Hill, Enfield, North, transport, cars, trucks, motorcycles, model railway 23. Wiener Library, Bloomsbury, Camden, North, history, exhibits of art and history from its collections about the Holocaust and genocides around the world. William Morris Gallery, Walthamstow, Waltham Forest, Northeast, Arts and Crafts Movement Furniture, Textiles, Ceramics and Glass. Wimbledon Lawn Tennis Museum, Wimbledon, Merton, Southwest, Sport, History of Tennis. Wimbledon Windmill Museum, Wimbledon, Merton, Southwest, Mill, 19th century windmill exhibits on its history and on other windmills. World Rugby Museum, Twickenham, Richmond upon Thames, Southwest, Sport, Rugby Union history and the England national rugby union team, players, memorabilia, history of Twickenham Stadium. Young V&A, Bethnal Green, Tower Hamlets, Northeast, Toys, Dolls, Children's Playtime and Lives.